Adapu, Namaste, Assalamu Alaikum, Haru Nefer. This is Kasak Maya Keparu with another broadcast for you. In this broadcast, I want to talk about how to use the tarot to awaken your third eye. But before I do that, I want you to hit the like button on this video. If this is your first time to my channel, welcome. Hit the subscribe button to get notifications on when I go live or when I upload recorded videos. Also, we have free ebooks. You can subscribe to get the free ebooks. Just click on the link below. You can download it right away and start reading. And if you're not already a supporter of ours on Patreon, you should consider being one because you'll get exclusive access to videos, articles, information that will take your study into the esoteric, into the spiritual realm a bit further. And right now we have some really good stuff on there. We're doing spiritual readings, how to do some meditations, proper breathing techniques, qigong mantras. In fact, we have a lot of videos on secret mantras. So if you get an opportunity, consider becoming a Patreon. The link is below. Lastly, share this video with family and friends so we can get the revolution started. And I'm sorry, my voice is a bit hoarse, but I just ate some spicy sauce, and I can't believe how hot it was. It was like really killing me. So, oh my God, it's one of those things when you're eating and you don't feel the effect right away, and it hits you like a brick wall. And I was on fire, running through my house trying to find something to drink to put it out, actually. But anyway. So I'm glad to see that the Magi's are coming into the chat room, and we're doing a kind of a late night broadcast. So I want to remind everybody we still have our program going, and I'm going to put the link up here, which is a really awesome program. And this is a reality manifestation program where I take you through the details and the process of shifting to a new reality to attract the things that you want in life. Some call it the secret, some call it the law of attraction. The more modern version now that's being used is reality transurfing. So the idea is that what you want already exists in a different plane of existence with a different alternate version of you. All you need to do is to vibrationally shift to that frequency so that you can interact with the thing that you desire. Again, I just remember what I said. You already have the thing that you desire. The thing that wrecks it, that actually keeps it from you, is the idea of scarcity, the idea of lack. Because the minute that you declare that you want something and that you're lacking something in your life, it is a command to the spirit that's within you to manifest lack. So you sabotage your efforts to get it. And there is a whole field of study around language patterns called NLP, neuro linguistic programming, which shows you how to program yourself using words, self-talk. You don't walk around going, "Oh, I can't believe I did that. Oh, I'm so stupid. Oh, I'll never have that." Those things, believe it or not, command your spirit to manifest that. So you have to really get into the habit of really repeating to yourself. Well, we can call it positive affirmations. I don't technically like that. Repeating to yourself patterns that reaffirm who you are, which is God man, God woman. Because the more you reinforce that, the stronger your power gets. And we've already been programmed to negate the power that's within us. You see, we don't believe that we can do these magical things because of the years of programming we've undergone from this dominant society. It has brainwashed us. It has removed from us the power that we have. So consequently, many of us, it's like I gave the analogy of a soldier with a semi-automatic weapon walking around, looking at the enemy and going, pow, 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 pow. Man, I wish I had a gun to shoot them. And he has a gun. He's holding the gun right there. That is you. You're going around. You're saying that you wish you had this. You wish you had that, and little do you know, you have the power within you to manifest it right away. In fact, it's insane how we operate sometimes. And the one thing that you probably don't realize is that there's many individuals out there who live their life purely on manifestation. They take trips to countries. They live a very good lifestyle because they know how to work the power that's within them. They know how to manifest things that they need. And you know, one of the things that Netter, God's source, laid down as the foundation was Ma'at, truth. And this is the truth of your being. So I want you to think about that. Now, one of the things I want to get in for this broadcast, I think is very, very important, um, that this society is so backwards on, which is the educational system. It is how you're being taught, which is primarily from a left brain perspective. And this left brain perspective has mushroomed to give us the world that you see before you, especially in politics, where you have the big setup of the Hegelian dialectic, where you have two choices, bad and worse. This is what our society is about. We're polarized into right and wrong, left and right, good, bad. We don't deal with the shades of gray because that's a right brain trait. See, the left brain has to look at things as an opposing element or oppositional. It does not look at things from a synthesis perspective or a congregative perspective, meaning to bring together. That's not what it's designed to do. Not that it's malfunctioning, it's not malfunctioning, it's working perfectly, but it's being used in areas where you shouldn't be using it. And for this, I'm going to bring up the idea of closed ended. When I was studying language patterns in neurolinguistic programming, NLP, we learned extensively about open ended and closed ended statements. And that's very powerful. You live in a left brain society where the language patterns that are constructed are closed ended, meaning when you read something, that is the end of the story, that is the end all and be all. Well, in order to activate the ujjat, the third eye, which is intuitive thought process, intuition, it is the gateway to the Akashic records, to the wisdom of Thoth, to Huti. In order for you to awaken that, you have to then begin to understand open-ended statements. You see, our ancestors perfected this. This is why when you see the hieroglyphics, they are language. There's a language there. We call it the sacred metuneta. And in that language, you notice there's no closed-ended statements. It's all open-ended. Let me demonstrate. Actually, let me illustrate the point by showing it to you. All right. I think you'll get it if you see what I'm talking about. All right. Let's take a look at this hieroglyphic here. If you go to the right, let's look at this one to the right. You'll see how Anubis, and you'll see how I think that's Heteru there. All of these characters in the hieroglyphic are caught in doing some type of action. It's not just them sitting there doing this. This would be a closed-ended statement. You're catching, it's almost like a photograph catching them in mid-action. That's open-ended. Case in point, we have, this is funny, here's another one right here. Notice how she's wearing the crown of Upper and Lower Egypt. Notice how she has her hand up. What's she doing? We don't know. You'll see this time and time again in the stelas or the Egyptian plates. Here's a funny meme, but you'll get the point. She's holding her hands up like that. What is she doing? Okay, so I think you get the point of what I'm saying. Now, this is a very, very powerful technique. And here's another one right here. Let's take a look at this. We got Thoth Tahuti here. It's like Heteru on the throne. And you see they're bringing her something. And Thoth is touching Osiris with the Ankh mid-action. All right, so you get the picture. What is happening here is that our ancestors are activating the right brain. When you're looking at that open-ended statement, not a closed-ended statement, but an open-ended statement in the Metuneta, It is forcing the right brain to come up with a conclusion, to come up with an idea of what's being stated. Because it's like the old serials of the 1950s. You and I probably, well, you are not aware of it because it's way before your time and definitely way before my time. But they would have these serials, these TV episodes where the character would, you'll see him riding on a horse, and then he's being chased by the bad guys, and then he goes over a cliff, and they say, tune in next week where we'll see what happened to the Long Ranger. Will he escape falling off this cliff? And then you have to tune in next week, and then you actually see that he never really went off the cliff. You know what I mean? Or you'll see where another case where you have a character, and he's being chased by a boulder, and he's running and running and running and running, and then the boulder seems like it goes over him, and they say, tune in next week to see if our hero gets out of this. Those are open-ended, and what that is doing is it's activating the ucha, the third eye, because you have to intuitively come up with something, okay, and you're exercising that faculty within you. You see, we go to the education system, the schools, and what we hold on one second. What we don't learn in modern education system is how to use intuition, how to intuit wisdom and knowledge. You see, we learn left brain, a little bit of right brain, but zero of anything on the third eye, and that's done on purpose. The same way they have fluoride in the toothpaste to calcify your pineal gland so that you can't use your third eye. Because the third eye, what the third eye is very key in doing is eliminating the ego. And the ego is the inhibitor to God source oneness. Because if you have people who suddenly lose that ego and are connecting the source and feeling the oneness to everything, you are awakening the planet to a higher level of thinking. This is why they're dumping fluoride in the water. This is why they tell you to stay away from the esoteric. Do you understand? So our ancestors knew that to take our society and bring them to a higher level of thinking, they would need to create a writing style. And they had hieratic, demonic, and hieroglyphic, the three writing styles. They would have to create a writing style that would appeal and communicate directly to the right brain, to what? The subconscious mind. You almost never use your third eye. It lays dormant within you. This is by design. But when you start looking at the metu neta and you're seeing them caught in mid-action, then it's an automatic reflex for the right brain to finish the sentence. Do you understand what I mean? To finish the sentence. It doesn't matter if you're correct or not. What matters is that you engage the thought process. Let me explain this further, okay? So we really get an understanding of this. One of the problems with the modern day education system is that it's a transference of information. I am the originator of the information. I did the research, I put together the papers, I wrote the book, and I'm passing the information on to Professor X. Professor X then teaches it in a class, disseminating the information to verbal oratory skills. Then you pick up on that, you take a test, which only tests memorization, that you memorize the material. And if and the criteria used to say that you passed the test or the course or even graduated from the university is how well you remembered the information. But going back to the originator of it, Professor X, there was no mapping out of how he arrived at that information. What was his thought process that allowed him to make those revelations? At no time do we do a deep dive into understanding that. Because if we can duplicate his thought process, then we all can become geniuses. A transfers of information does not produce geniuses, it produces robots, it produces conformity. And then when one individual comes along and decides to research Professor X and how his thought process was arriving at the conclusions, um, and that person then duplicates what Professor X did, then we call them a genius. But if the universities focused on that one aspect, we could revolutionize things overnight. A transference of information is a closed-ended statement. You're not asked to think, to come up with an ending or a solution. You're asked to present the closed-ended statement. You're asked to say, tell us exactly what you learned. Do not open, it's not open to your interpretation, your hypothesis. Tell us exactly what you learned. And if you were able to regurgitate the information verbatim, you're given a PhD. It's that simple. But our Kemetic ancestors said this. They said, if you have these open-ended statements, if you force the mind, see, your subconscious mind works whether you are aware of it or not, whether you are conscious or unconscious, it's still processing. It's still doing work. This is how you dream. This is how you daydream. If you could tap into that and tell the subconscious mind to invent me a hovercraft and have it work in the background and then come up with that, you would be a genius. And this is exactly what Nikolai Tesla did. When they interviewed him, asked him, "Well, how do you produce these inventions? You're a genius." He says, "It's all in my imagination. My mind sees a picture of it, and it puts the components together, and it tests the components out to see if they work, and then based on that beta test in my mind, then I come out and I produce it as a low fidelity prototype." Do you understand what I'm saying? And this is the thinking that we have to get at. This is where we have to go. And unfortunately, too many people who are talking about homeschooling their kids want to just replicate the system that doesn't work. What are you going to do? Just reproduce a failed curriculum? But one of the things that we can do right here and now, as occultists, as magi's, is to start using a third eye, start exercising it on our own. Because once you start down that path, the psychic gateway will open and you'll start to receive more revelations, more inspirations, more ideas. And it's going to be wonderful. And this is the great thing about the Kemetic religion is because it forces you to think. Those individuals that are sitting in the Christian church are missing out on so much information. Because you see, the Bible is based on astrotheology. It is based on open-ended statements. They're metaphors. Metaphor is an open-ended statement. Puns are open-ended statements, and I've talked about this before, how our ancestors loved puns. They loved analogies. They loved metaphors. Not just because they were interesting um, ways to write stories. No, because it activated the uchat, that psychic center, that connection to the Akashic records. And one of the things that we can start doing right now is to work with the oracles, because the oracles force you to finish the statement. It forces you to use your intuitive skills. That's where you get on that level of, hey, Jay, I'm going to kick you out of my chat if you keep writing. Okay? Because you can email me, and I'm pretty sure, when they check, they've never seen an email for you. So don't keep writing that nonsense in my chat room. Okay? We're here to learn a lesson. Okay. So using the oracles is a way to check how well your intuitive faculty works. Now, this isn't that easy, because when I first started out, because I've gone to the university system, I've done this, I've done that, I was very left brained. So when I was using the oracles, it was very hard for me. I was like, oh man, I'm not getting this. And I remember the king telling us, he says, it'll take about 2 years for you to get this. And I was like, oh, wow. And it did. It actually did take me about 2 years to get it. And that's typically with most people, because it's a language that's so different from the way we're used to. See, our language is linear, and the oracles don't work that way. They communicate in a non-linear fashion, you see. And they're appealing to the archetypes that are trapped in the subconscious mind, the archetypes that Carl Jung talked about. There's the mother, the father, the hero, Haru. But anyway, I digress. So what I started doing is not only working more with the oracles, right? And there's so many different ones out there that you can work with. There is the one that we primarily use, which is the Great Oracle of Tahuti. But then there is the tarot, and the most widely used version, because there are many different versions, is the Rider Waite Tarot deck, and it's it has the basis of coming out of European occultism. But the wonderful thing about it, as I alluded to before about the archetypes, it contains a wealth of symbols and images and iconography that force you to think. And at the same time, it implants the symbols in the subconscious mind, so that as you're focusing on them, you are actually learning a different language that's going to communicate to you omens, predictions of the future, things of that nature. This is why when many people who are really good at the tarot, the reason they've gotten so good is because they have sat down and this is what you should do. They have meditated upon each tarot card just by looking at the images. In fact, that's one thing, when I was in priesthood, the priestess told me, she says, I said, well, how do I get good at these oracles? She says, meditate on each card, because it has symbolism in it, and that symbolism is going to communicate to you. And this is why when you look at the hieroglyphics, you'll not just see the images of the pharaoh, of the goddess, but there's so many other symbols there. And you think, I mean, on the conscious level, you may be ignoring it, but at the subconscious level, the right brain, the subconscious mind, picks up everything. It picks up everything. You're absorbing all of that. Remember, we read from left to right. That's a linear way. The right brain takes everything in all at once. It absorbs it, which is why, let me see, do I have a book here? Which is why you can you can read a book just by flipping a page and just looking at a particular page and not having to go line by line by line. Um, your subconscious mind absorbs every line on that book. You can't recall it, but you have retained it. Rest assured, you never forget anything you see. It's all taken in and stored in the Akashic records, and you're always connected to the Akashic records. Your job is to know how to pull the information and download it and make use of that information. So let's take a look at an example of this, so you guys get an idea of what I'm talking about. Now, if you're interested in being good at the oracles and working with them, um, you'll need to perfect what I was just talking about. Learning to look at things, read things from a nonlinear perspective and also open-ended. Learning to interpret things. Now, the key here again is that there's no right answer. It's about you exercising that faculty, learning to use that faculty. That's the most important thing. And those individuals who are masters of the tarot have been doing it for years. And the one thing that's kind of inhibited them is that they've only used their intuitive faculty when it comes to tarot. They have not transferred that talent over, some have, to other aspects of their life. And that's the most important thing to keep in mind, is that you're not just meant to use this with divination. You should be using it in every aspect of your life, to solve problems, to come up with inventions, to learn to work with people harmoniously, you know, to foretell the future. Because yes, you can do that. That's part of who you are. You are God man, God woman. You have the ability to foresee the future. But that skill lies dormant within you because you don't use it. So I want to go through and give you guys an example. So let me, first things first, I'm going to do a tarot reading for you guys. Does anyone have a particular question that they want to ask? Because that way I can, as I'm showing you how to use your third eye, I can also address a question that may be on the top of your mind. So if you have a question, just put it in the chat box there while I shuffle the deck. And what I think I'll do, I want to show you guys a basic 3-card spread, because that's a good introduction into this. Okay, no one has a question. Then I will ask a question. Okay. So what's a good question to ask? Let us look at one of my favorite topics or subject matter. How will African Americans fare in the year 2020? All right, let's look at that. All righty. I think that's a good question to ask. All right, now let's take a look, and I'm going to do this spread. I'm going to explain the spread as we go along so you can get a good idea of it. Okay, so I shuffled the cards. If I can do this, well, I'm not going to give her. Okay. Okay. Again, this is a basic 3-card spread. All right. Okay, first card. Okay. All right. So in this spread, what we're looking at here is a lot of iconography, a lot of symbolisms. Okay, and you probably can't see it because I don't have a zoom up so you can see it really close. But we have the death card, which a lot of people get afraid of, but don't worry about that. We have the Seven of Cups, and then we have the Three of Swords. All right. Now, we look at this as a sentence or a statement. We have our subject, we have our predicate, and we have our description. So we would have the subject of this is death, of course. The predicate of the verb is the cups, and then we have the descriptor, which is the Three of Swords. So when we look at death in the reverse position, we talk about something that's not coming to a conclusion, something that refuses to end so that the new cycle can begin. So when we're looking at the Seven of Cups, here we're looking at emotional confusion. That's one way of interpreting it. And then here we have the Three of Swords, which talks about heartbreak. We can also read this as beginning, middle, and end. Now, I gave you an interpretation here. It is not closed-ended, meaning that that's not the only interpretation that you can gather from here because there's a wealth of knowledge here. The symbolism in here, you can take it many different ways. You can look at it from the point of view of the Seven of Cups, saying that there will be a lot of opportunities, but those will not pan out because in the end there'll be heartbreak or there'll be conflict. You can also look at, oh, there's going to be an ending of something coming up. Subject, predicate, description. And the most important thing too is to start looking at the iconography. You have the cups with a head on top of it. You have another cups with a castle, castles in the sky. You have a cup with the dragon. Here you have a knight on a horse and he's in black, skeleton figure. What does that mean to you? What is that communicating to you? And by viewing this and doing multiple readings and coming up with your own interpretations, you are engaging the right brain. You are thinking for yourself. Does that make sense? And this skill of learning to interpret symbolism can be easily transferred over into life. And it's funny how it's a necessary skill that we don't use. In other words, what can you infer by certain statements made, certain actions done by people? What can you infer by that? And one thing that's great about the oracles is that well, there's a lot of great things. Let me pinpoint one thing I was kind of thinking about. Overall, the oracle, if you learn to be a good diviner, it's going to radically change your life. It's going to improve the quality of your life overall. You're going to be, I hate to use this term this way, you're going to be more intelligent. You're going to be more intuitive. And consequently, what you'll find is people will want your advice because you'll be good at reading people. But the oracle will also, oh, this is what my main point I was going to say. The oracle forces you to look at things objectively. Because when you're doing readings, you've got to separate yourself from the reading. You have to divorce yourself from the reading, okay? And for some people, that is very, very tough because they always want to interject their biases and their prejudices. So you have to learn to be objective. Now, there are many different decks that have many different types of symbolism, but they all come out of the European folklore, European occultism. And there's nothing wrong with that. You should learn that, know those archetypes, learn the iconography. so that you can be more intuitive and in touch with that aspect of yourself. Okay, that's very important. So next, let's do Toha Haru. You asked, will your finances improve? That's a very good question. Let's look at see if her finances will improve for this year. And I've always state this. Very good question she asked. Very good question. You should never allow anything to catch you by surprise, because God put you here with the oracles. God made you an oracle. So you should be able to discern what is going to happen and prepare for it. Okay. And if you've taken my if you watch my videos and taken my classes, you'll know that there's no reason to get upset or nervous if you get what you perceive to be a bad reading, because the God Tahuti tells us nothing has a quality in and of itself. Nothing is intrinsically bad or good. It's only how you color it. This is why it's important to have objectivity. So let's go and do her reading on will her finances improve. And sometimes you got to be prepared because you never know what it's going to say. It may kind of shock you, you know. We're going to do a basic, again, 3-card spread, okay, for her finances. Now, there are many different spreads that get more into detail, okay, and I'm going to demonstrate one for you. Subject, predicate, description. Subject, Knight of Swords. Predicate or verb, 5 of Pentacles reversed. Descriptor, the Empress. So let's read this statement. We see a knight. We see a knight. Bring us close up. See if I can make close up. Ooh, ooh. A knight on a horse, okay, with a sword high in the air. That's kind of like victory, or he's on a campaign. So, and the sword is the element of air. So we can read that you're doing something where you're like an advocate for it, that you're behind something, you believe in something. All right. But however, we have the 5 of Pentacles, which is reverse. So this is an indication of finances. Your finances are going to be in trouble. However, we have the Empress. The Empress is very good. She is surrounded by a lavish setting. So she is a positive omen. We can also interpret this, as I mentioned before, beginning of the year, middle of the year, and the ending of the year. All right. Now, this is a time, if you were doing this reading on your own, for you to really study each card and see what you gather from the card. Now, this is the Empress in this deck, but the Rider-Waite Tarot deck has this. A woman sitting, and she's adorned with a lavish dress, and she is seated around a lot of green, and green is associated with Osir. It's also associated with something being fertile. So although the middle of the year, you're going to have some bad financial issues coming up, the ending is going to work out really good for you. Okay? So that's how we would interpret this. And again, if I wanted to, I can really get more detail in it and start reading into the symbolism and provide her with more information. Or I can do another complex spread. But be careful, because if you do a complex spread, you'll be there for a long time trying to interpret every little thing. You know what I mean? Oh, hey, Kiana, how are you? Hatepu. Let's let's do the reading on who's the question they gave before her? Buki. I don't want to do the reading on will I get married. Are you are you in a relationship right now? Can you answer me that question before I decide to tackle that? Sorry, I mean when will I get Oracle? Well, the the Oracle can tell you when, but that's a little more involved and that will take time. So you should set something up with me a little later. Let's do Kiana. She says, "What will my outcome of moving to another city be?" Okay, we can do that reading. All right. Yeah, let's do that reading for her. Okay. And what you'll notice is that the interpretation I give may be different from another tarot reader because we're learning to use our right brain to interpret the symbolism. And although there may be a correct answer, hey, Roy Hatepu, although there may be a correct answer, there are various different ways of getting there, if you understand what I mean. You know what I mean? Okay. So let's do Kiana's question. What will be her outcome for moving to another city? Do you have a city in mind? You should let me know if you have a city in mind. All right. So let's do that. All right, so we have a lot of things going on here. And this is what we call the Celtic cross spread. And this is a linear story, starting from the middle and then going clockwise. Justice card starting out. So we see that things are going to go well for her. However, the immediate thing is the devil reversed. So she's letting go or saying goodbye to something. She's being released for something. The tower here, very bottom, symbolizes a disruption. Something in her life is going to be disrupted. Very kind of like, I hate to use the word violently, but it's a big, big change. Here is the the Six of Wands, which is very good reading. It's a success reading. And this talks about the environment. This is the emperor. The emperor actually affects the fool. The fool is reversed. This means that you're making a decision, but you're not really looking at what you're doing. You're not planning it correctly. Okay. And the fool, what I talked about, is stepping off a cliff. If you can see it, he's on a cliff, and you got to look at what you're doing, or she'll fall off the cliff if you don't be careful. So it's in the reverse, meaning that you're not thinking clearly about what you're doing. So if I wanted to get some more information, right? Let me just see if we can see if she's going to really be successful there. So that looks pretty good. There's going to be a guy that's going to come along, symbolized by the King of Wands, who can help her in her situation. So she will be meeting somebody who will work with her to make things work out. But this reading is not telling me that there's going to be an immediate success. It's basically giving you a little bit of advice at that too. It's telling you that you're going to have to really be careful about how you plan this out and how you make your moves. And I'm seeing the Emperor and I'm seeing the King of Wands. So we're definitely talking about a male energy, some type of figure coming in to work with you on this. Um, and I'm also seeing the Queen of Swords reverse. So that deals with communication, that deals with proficiency in your skills, left brain aptitude, things of that nature, thinking logically. So, and this one talks about Knight of Wands. This one is being on the move. Uh, like making a change. So there's definitely opportunity for things to work out. There's nothing horrible that I see in this reading, but it is one that you're going to have to be very, very careful in terms of making sure you plan it out correctly. All right. So let me just do something. I would love to get some more information to see some advice, but we'll do that a little later. But again, you have coming out of the European culture their iconography, like the devil here. This is reverse. This means you're chained to something, to binding to something, which can mean you're chained to your present city. The reverse means you're going to let go. You're going to free yourself and move on. Narrative story. Well, let me go back. Yeah, let me just tell as a narrative story. Beginning of the year, you start out really well. Things are working out for you. The Justice card means that what you put in is what you get out. So it's very good. You're gonna let go of the current city. You're gonna say, I'm going. I'm goodbye. I'm making that move. This will cause a disruption. This means that now you're changing environments. Everything changes for you. You know what I mean? You're moving. You're gone. What happens? Boom. You get into a new environment that's really good for you, really conducive. That's gonna work out for you. Here we have the Emperor. Emperor's authority. This could mean a company, it could mean an individual, a man that will assist you. And then you have the Fool card, means that you're going to be doing things and you're not really prepared for it, not paying attention to it. But that's okay because you've got the King of Wands. You're going to get some help from a male figure who's going to come along and really support you in that way. All right. That's the story. Okay, my beloveds. All right. So I'm running short on time. I hope I've really given you guys the idea of working with your third eye, the intuitive faculty, learning to interpret these things. So, yeah, I'm a little behind. I didn't mean to keep you guys this long and up this late. So, remember my program, Reality Manifestation, if you guys are interested in manipulating reality and really just changing your life and learning this skill so that you don't have to go through life wanting and living in lack. You're made to live in abundance. So I want to thank you, Magi's, for tuning in. I hope that this message really resonates with you and you understand that, listen, God endowed you with some awesome powers. You are the shit. You're all that in a bag of chips. You just don't realize it yet. This is Gasank Ma Keperu, son of the most high goddess, Ma'at, and her husband, Tahuti, god of the oracles. And my aunt, Hathor Heteru, goddess of love. Till my next broadcast, Amen Ra.